check out the Migos, Culture 3. I think they're
In a
only doing
minute.
three cultures, right? So this is the end of the trilogy for them, I
I
believe.
believe
Something
that's
like
what they've
this.
been saying. Yes, they've been hyping it up as a trilogy. The
That's been
conclusion, also their
years.
first album as a trio since Culture 2 way back in early 2018. So it's been quite a minute. Not that the Migos as soloists haven't been around. Of course, we got all three of their debut solo albums between now and then. But it's been a minute for Migos as a group to release more than just an appearance here and there. And I think a lot of people were anticipating this, but at the same time, I saw a lot of chatter about like perhaps a lack of hype for this Migos album. But I wouldn't. I mean, they're still doing over 100,000. Like it's not like Migos is. They're eating fine. They're good. They're still very successful guys. But I think this actually kind of snowballed into a kind of more macro conversation about how Migos have become almost elder statesmen in rap, especially Atlanta rap, which is
Mm.
really funny because Quavo has just turned 30. It's not like these guys are
Yeah.
old. I believe Takeoff is like 26. They're not old at all, but they've been around for about 6 7 years in terms of super mainstream notoriety at this point, and that's kind of ancient history. Funny thing about how like in between Culture 2 and now, you've had so many other artists that operate in similar circles completely blossom, right? Megan Thee Stallion, Roddy Rich, DaBaby, NBA YoungBoy. There's been a little baby, of course, their label mate. Like lot's happened between Culture 2 and now.
Yeah, what I was thinking about just like their rise, right? And it kind of coincided with the podcast in a way when we really started doing this. Um I think about the Donald Glover moment, when he wins at the Golden Globes for Atlanta and he shouts out Migos because he said "Bad and Bougie," just like the best song ever. And it's just like so funny because they were such a meteoric rise. They were just everywhere at that point, and
Right?
um,
A million
then
Quavo features for like a good 18 months.
literally it felt like every rap album you heard Quavo pop up, and it's just kind of interesting because after Culture 2, obviously they lost a lot of momentum, pretty critically panned, kind of just like a unmemorable album, which is one of probably the worst things that you can say. And it's
Right.
like to go from being maybe the biggest rap group in the country for 2 years to falling off and then not even making an album for 3 years. It's just a strange and quick ride for them. But and then it does feel like they've lived a couple lifetimes in this 5 or 6 year stretch. So coming into Culture 3, I guess I would say I wasn't necessarily like super excited about the album, but I was interested to see if they could regain their footing. Um, and I think I left feeling like, okay, this is moving back in the right direction, but still obviously did not reach the highs of the Culture One to me.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, looking back at Culture 2, which I just checked this. There actually are 4 platinum hits on Culture 2. Stir Fry, Narcos, Walk It Like I Talk It, and Motorsport. So like it's
Hmm.
stuff stuck around, but like put the commercial stuff aside, I think creatively it was a disappointing album because Culture One, as you said, was such a breath of fresh air in terms of a mainstream Atlanta album, but also felt like a level up for Migos, who had been around a while. Like they had a lot of tapes. The YRN era is very storied and very popular with people that were, up on it at the time. And, I mean, Versace remix with Drake, which I think
Hmm.
really catapulted them. That was 2015, I think, or 2014. Like that was a while ago. Oh,
Yep.
and several years before Culture One. And like you said, to have Culture Two come out basically a year to the day after the complete success of the first Culture and not stick around as an album was a bummer, right? And like I remember we were
Hmm.
really hyped for Ray Shremmer's Shrem Life 3 to follow. It was another album that was disappointing, but at least had more merits because of like the triple disc, this the
Hmm.
delineations of the solo and the group album that it was. And for
Yeah.
Migos, it was just like they just felt like aimless for a while, right? And I think Quavo, the features stopped feeling special.
Yeah.
People started being much more interested in Offset's features, which were still hitting. We got those 3 solo albums, all have their merits. I think the Quavo one's the worst. The Takeoff one's probably the best. Coming into this, and randomly, right, you have that Pure Water song, the DJ Mustard song, which
Yeah.
went 4 times platinum, which is just a Migos song, right? Like the Takeoff's thing is like
Mhm.
iconic at this point, right? So like when I heard Pure Water, I was like, you know what? People are still ready for a good Migos song. There's no denying
Mhm.
this. And I just think maybe they just don't feel as fresh anymore. Like I said, a lot of things have happened. But to
Yeah.
get this, it's definitely better than Culture 2. It has a lot of the
Mhm.
same sins though. I would have thought they would have moved past the packing the track list from the jump. Like, you know what? You want to throw all this shit on the fucking deluxe, whatever. Everyone else is doing it. But to like pack the original track list again, because like when they did it for Culture 2, that was when that was really starting the whole like gaming streams thing. But to see him do it now, I was kind of frustrated because I think the bones of a great album or a great EP are so evident in Culture 3, but they just don't let you have that chance because it's just so bloated.
Mhm. Yeah, just to kind of circle back to one of the things you're talking about in terms of like the freshness that they brought, the way that they like the interplay that they had, and the overall energy that they brought to the first album Culture. It was just so unique, something people had never really heard in terms of like
Right.
the way that they ad libbed off each other, and it felt so genuine, almost just like you were kind of in the studio with them, like
Right.
bobbing around.
Triplet flow was really new to a lot of people at that time.
And now I feel like we get a lot of people who not necessarily steal from them, but have definitely borrowed, like throwing the ad libs in more often, kind of filling in that space all the time. And so, while it was really new and exciting then, that vibe, it doesn't feel as fresh anymore. And it's just kind of like, if they're a group where you're like, I just want to hang around this vibe all the time, and you're getting that vibe everywhere else, then it really comes down to what's the quality of the raps. And I think we've seen, while some of them, take off and offset specifically have kind of kept their game at least on par.
Mhm.
Over the last couple of years, Quavo seems to have fallen off, or maybe been not as interested. He's obviously had some pretty public uh, stuff going on in his personal life,
Right.
so you never know like where their heads at with that. But yeah, I agree. I think I felt like this was very similar to the last album, Culture 2, but I do feel like this is a little bit better. Um, and there were quite a few tracks that I was like, okay, I can get with this. And I think Jane, the Birkin song, is probably the biggest standout for me. I thought that it's just like a total like made for the club song. Feels like something that could have been off like Culture One, and that was for sure one that stood out to me. But it seems like maybe you didn't feel that way.
Interesting. Now, in general, I'm much more down on the second half of the album,
Hmm.
and I'd actually noted Jane. That was when like one of the repetitive hooks started to get to me. There's plenty of like lazy
Hmm.
hooks on Culture 3, but the Jane one, I was like, oh man, this is hard. I gotta give it another listen now.
I think what it is about that is you can just hear that like being played in the club, and like people
Sure.
like singing that hook. Whereas like some of the other repetitive hooks, I wasn't sure if they could be hitting in that
Yeah.
same way. But you like the first half more. Which songs stood out to you?
So it's not the lead single, but it's the lead single for like the album cycle and proper straightening. Straightening, which has kind of a weak hook on itself. I really love the verses, particularly that first verse from Quavo, which was shared as a snippet to get people excited for the album. And it definitely got me excited because Quavo sounded really clear and refreshed. And also lyrically, what he's getting at is how like people act like the game got vacant or game went vacant. He's like you sleeping on us now. We were barely gone. Like fuck off. And I kind of love
Mhm.
that attitude. It's like they were putting a chip back on their shoulder. And then you saw Trey Young, using that those lyrics as a caption and stuff. I think Straighten is gonna stick around. I like that one a lot. And then backing up, the first track, Avalanche, which really doesn't have a hook at all. I believe they did this on Fallon. That one is just like a textbook example of the Migos chemistry, right? They all just
Mhm.
take turns doing a verse. When they're not doing the verse, they're doing the ad libs for the other guy, right?
Yep,
It's a
I
classic
like
Migos
Avalanche.
song. And then Having Our Way, there's a storied history between Migos and Drake, of course, starting with the Versace remix. And I didn't love Walk It Like I Talk It. But this one I really love for Drake because I thought that was a really inspired Drake flow.
It
And
was some of the lines I thought were a little corny, but I
mhm,
think the one thing I'll say is we're talking about Drake just totally stealing the second song on this
yeah,
album. Like
right.
it's totally a Drake song. It almost could have been off one of his albums that you just gave it
It's a
to
good point.
almost.
Yeah, the first 90 seconds are all Drake for the most part. Like,
Crazy.
but I really when I first heard him go and like the third Migo I take, I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
great. This is really good.
That was
So
yeah,
yeah,
that was really good.
so Avalanche having our way and straightening, and then type shit, which with Cardi B, and it's a good Cardi feature is what you expect from Cardi, but I actually think it's more special for Takeoff's performance, which
Mm,
is really, really hot, but also brings you back to the YRN era where they're like really speaking from their chest, and Quavo comes in just a little bit before Cardi, and like they just sound so young and like old school Migos for me
mm.
there. So those first four tracks I thought were awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think Avalanche really stood out, and having our way for the Drake of it all really stood out to me as well. I thought the type shit was pretty good. You know, I think hearing Cardi almost on any track always perks me up a little bit. But I agree. I think it starts off really hot. You know, I'm wondering where the turning point is for you because
Mhm.
there's one track that the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, I actually really like this. Where they it's Vaccine, where they
Yes,
interpolated
that's exactly
March.
the turning point.
Yes, they took March from the Nutcracker and used that as the beat, and then they just like obviously put
Mhm.
the rap fine tunings on it, modern sound. And the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is kind of a fun song. And then I was like, actually, this I don't know about this song so much. And that's
I
kind
just
of
love
when
it.
things started to turn.
For me, it's just the Quavo performance on the hook. We get money in quarantine. It just gives me old school Quavo vibes. That's why I liked it. But after
Yeah,
that, like you have forgettable moments. Future, Bieber, Juice World, Pop Smoke, uh,
mhm.
ending off with "Need It," which was a song already released in summer 2020. Not a lot of things stood out to me after Vaccine. You know, Jane, but other than that, like that's where the blue started to rear its ugly head for me. But this leads me to listen to the beginning again because I think there's a lot of nice highlights.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought Antisocial Juice World, even though I think some of the mixing on that isn't great. Like the
Mhm.
vocals between the Migos and then Juice World is so off. I think they could have used a little more time on that one. I did give them a little bit of credit because I think when I think about Migos, I totally just want to hear them doing bangers all the time, and the fact that they still try to bring in some more like emotional, like personal songs, I'm like, okay, like
Yeah,
they're at least trying to be like a real artist, not just giving us radio fodder all the time.
yeah. I think Quavo had some nice lines about Pop Smoke and how I wish he
Yeah.
could have done more because they had collabed in
Mhm.
life with Pop. So yeah, I mean, this is
Where do you
gonna
feel
do
like they
number
go from
two
here?
behind Polo G. Funny enough, Polo's featured on this. I don't think that matters all that much. That's fine. I just you wanna see the we've already acknowledged that the album's too long, so you just want to see a lot of those songs stick around. I want to see Migos, keep it going. It seems like Offset and Cardi B are back on good terms. Obviously, Cardi's featured on this. They seem to have
Mhm.
reconciled, and Quavo, the sweetie thing didn't go well at the end there, and there was a rape allegation against Takeoff last year, civil
Mm.
suit. We'll see what happens with that, but I just hope they can keep the momentum going because I think Atlanta rap is better when these guys are at the top because they still have a chemistry that's hard to replace,
Yeah.
so I'd rather have it than not have it.
I know. I'm wondering if they want to get something else that's not, a culture part of the culture trilogy. I wonder if to them it would feel like a fresh start in some way. I also, we got those solo albums from them. I'm really hoping that they make another Migos album before they branch off again because I feel like they're starting to capture something again, and I'd like them to keep exploring that personally.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
know that they're gonna do what they want to do.